Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for joining us today. We posted my story about my healing journey over the last 20 years, and we now wanted to flip it over to Josh and have him share his story so you guys can know it's not just me, it's not just Josh, as both of us have gone through a whole hell of a lot in our healing journey from, being bedridden, sick, struggling to back to thriving again. And it's not just one of us, it's not just, it's both of us and many people that we've had in our class. So, what's up, homie? We're going to do your story today. yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah. So, like, I don't know where you want to start, man. Let's just kind of go into to the beginning. I think on the last one, I kind of started when I first started having symptoms. We'll just go through it, and I'll ask you some questions as we go through.
sounds good, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I got sick back in 2006. And
Yeah.
looking back, I had a lot of trauma from the past and stuff growing up. My mom was married 4 times, just crazy. I was a wild rebel, got into a
Yeah.
lot of trouble and stuff. But, I felt like I was finally at a good place in my life, but I had all this stuff from my past that I kind of pushed back. But I think somewhere in the background, like I'd never addressed it, I'd never taken care of it. And then come 2006, I was working, for the federal government, and we got shoot out by a general. We were all
Yeah.
civilian contractors and stuff like that. So I took all these guys out paintballing. I was like, let's blow off some steam, let's shoot at each other, let's
Yeah.
burn this out. And I was in Loudoun County, Virginia. And I remember that night getting home and pulling a tick off the back of my knee, or back of
Yeah.
my leg. Not thinking anything of it. I grew up playing in the woods, had ticks on me all the time. And, it was what it was. I didn't really think too much of it. And about 2 weeks later, I got this gnarly flu in the middle of the summer, dude. Like I went to the doctor because I was like, man, I feel like I'm dying. I was 26. I was in great health. I was
Yeah.
active. I was playing in like a men's adult travel basketball league, and just felt healthy. I could run 3 miles.
Yeah.
You know, didn't mind what I ate. I was still eating like garbage. But anyways, I had this out of season flu, and the doctors immediately tested me for Lyme disease. Like, your tests are negative, you're okay,
Yeah.
everything's fine. But it's very peculiar that you came in the middle of the summer with a flu.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was bad. Like I remember, like I was army man crawling in the bathroom
Yeah.
to get the toilet to yak. And for
Um,
like 2 weeks, dude, I was just wiped.
wow.
And the doctors didn't have any answer. I remember just kind of laying in the bed and just like, ugh.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, I got better
Yeah.
and, went back to work. And I'd taken a job in Raleigh, North Carolina. It was my dream job. So we started selling our house in the DC area. I was 26 years old, and I was moving into a senior security engineer position. So I was super excited and got in there and had a lot of stress. Had part of a huge outage in network outage in New York that was my fault. So a lot of stress behind that.
That's crazy.
And in 3 months of being in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, which is like a hotbed for IT, I changed jobs 3 times and was just trying to find a good fit. And I was working overnight for Verizon, for Chinese customers, and just started kind of feeling off and wasn't getting the sleep that I needed. And I left that job and I started working for AT&T, global business. And remember being in my office one day, and just out of nowhere, it felt like everything was closing in on me. Like
Yeah.
I thought at 26 I was going to die. Like I had this impending fear of doom. Thought I was
Yeah.
having a heart attack. Was having trouble breathing. Hands went numb. Face went numb. We know the story. I put my feet on the wall, in my office, and I pushed off in my roll chair, and I rolled back in the network operations center, and I was like, "Someone call 911." I
Oh
had
my God.
McDonald's sitting on my desk that I was
That's
eating,
funny. That's
dude.
crazy.
And now neither of us would touch that stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, someone call 911. I'm dying. They're like, bro, your blood sugar is probably low. So someone brings me like a Coke. They're like, just
Yeah.
drink this. So I'm like guzzling a Coke, like the exact
Yeah.
opposite of what we need.
That's what your last thing you need is more caffeine
Yeah,
and sugar.
they call the ambulance, bro. And I'm being pulled out on a gurney, and I black out. And I woke up in the hospital. They doped me up with Ativan.
Mm.
And I woke up, and I remember the doctors coming to. They're like, "You had a panic attack," and like everything's blurry and dreamlike, and I
Yeah.
couldn't really describe the state of mind. I felt like I was on a really bad drug or a bad
Yeah.
trip. And the doctor said, "You had a panic attack." I was like, I looked at, I was like, "Dude, I'm not soft. Like
Yeah.
I didn't have a panic attack. Like I'm not an anxious person. And
Yeah.
he's like, it doesn't matter. It can happen to anybody. Are you under a lot of stress? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, I'm trying to sell a house. I did have all this stress going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, it's all right. Here's a bottle of benzodiazepines or Ativan. Take this. Don't drive for, the next 6 hours and you'll be straight. And I thought that I was just under the effects of the medication. And I'm just still in this dream-like state, like
Mm-hmm.
what I now know to be derealization, depersonalization. And my boss comes and takes me back to work. He's like, man, that's tough. I went up to my office, got my briefcase. Back then when people actually carried that, well,
Yeah.
laptop bag, that, my BlackBerry. I went to my car and he's like, dude, are you sure you can drive? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm good. But I got in the car and I'm like, yo, why does it feel like I'm in a dream? Like, why does this
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
feel so weird? And
Mm-hmm.
I had all these, my heart was racing and stuff like that. And I get in my car and I'm driving back to the condo that they'd put me up in. And I couldn't even make it a mile down the road. I started freaking, panicking, sweating, like trouble breathing, like felt like I was dying. I pull right into a hotel. I throw cash on the counter. I was like, whatever you got to do, give me a room now. Like, I need a room now. Like, I need a room now. And they're like, we need a credit card. I just put my wallet. I was like, take whatever you need. Here's my ID. Just do it, do it, do it, do it. Like, and I was panicking.
Yeah.
So I get that. I go to my room and I literally take all my clothes off. I'm just in my underwear and I'm curled up in the ball like a crazy person, shaking. I called my wife and I'm like, dude, I'm dying. I'm in North Carolina. She's in DC. I was like, I'm dying. I don't know what's going on. They told me I had a panic attack. That happened 6 hours ago. I still feel like I'm sick. She's like, well, just take your medicine. I was like, all right. So I took the medicine and it made me feel like, ugh, but I still felt this
Yeah.
overwhelming urgency of, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. And she eventually came down and we went back to the condo. And I woke up the next day and it was still this intense
Yeah.
feeling of just being unwell, malaise, fatigue, muscle
Mm-hmm.
tension, soreness, palpitations, rapid heart rate, air hunger, confusion, and derealization, depersonalization. I felt like I had fallen off a cliff and dove headfirst into hell. That's the only way I
Yeah.
can
That's.
describe
I
it.
know that. Yeah.
And for weeks and weeks, this continued. And I went back to the hospital. I was like, hey, I came in here for a panic attack, but I feel like I'm dying.
Yeah.
And, it's crazy because, you know, I'll fast forward for this part, but for every day, it just progressively got worse.
Mm.
And, my wife went back up to DC. I was like, you know what? I got to pull my socks up. I got to man through it. I got to go
Mm.
back to work. I got a mortgage to pay. And I remember driving to work. It had been like a week and a half since I've been there. They're like, yo, dude, you all right? I'm like, yeah, I'll figure it out. And going into the bathroom every 15 minutes and splashing cold water on
Yeah.
my doing this and like looking in the mirror and like, what is wrong with you? Like, snap into it. Like, what's going on?
If
And
anyone else that's dealt with depersonalization, derealization knows
yeah,
exactly that because I did the same thing as well.
it's crazy. So I would go into the cafeteria area and I would literally stick my head in the freezer like a weirdo. And I would
Mm.
take ice cubes and I would take the ice cubes and like put them on my eyes. Like I'm
Yeah.
trying to feel like I'm present and I'm here and I have all these symptoms going on. And then eventually I get to a point where I couldn't go to work there anymore.
Yeah.
So I couldn't drive. I had this bad thing where I had a bad episode of DPDR and just not feeling well. I was on the highway. I swerved over a tractor trailer, jackknifed and just messed up. And
Mm.
from that point on, like I had trouble driving because I didn't feel confident enough.
Yeah.
And my dad had to come down to North Carolina to get me. And I'm curled up in his back seat, covered with a blanket as a grown man, convinced I'm dying. I was like, we got
Yeah.
to go find answers. And this went on for like two years. I just
Yeah.
I was like, I can't work. I can't do anything. I went to the Mayo Clinic. I went to John Hopkins. I went to all these top doctors in the DC area, and just everybody said, you're overworked. You're anxious. I had a doctor write on a piece of paper, this is just your anxiety. Remember, you're stronger. And he told me to carry this around with me the entire time.
He's.
And I got online. This was back when MySpace was a thing. And I started to meet a community of people that were suffering with severe anxiety. And that's what I thought it was, that I was a hypochondriac, that it was
Yeah.
all in my head. Little did I know. And I'd met this person that become a friend. And, back then in the chronic illness community, everybody had these buddies that they talk with online.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, did you ever get tested for Lyme disease? I was like, yeah, but it came back negative. She's like, no, 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 get tested. So I went and got
Yeah.
tested. It came back positive. I went down the whole rabbit hole of needing to find an LLMD, which, guys,
Yeah.
it's a rabbit hole. So I went. By this point, I'm pretty
How
sick.
many years into that was your until you started you
Two
actually
and a
knew
half,
that?
3 years is when I finally got
Yeah.
my diagnosis.
Okay,
And in
gotcha.
between there, dude, probably 30 trips to the ER,
Yeah, yeah,
and there probably 6, 7 ambulance rides where like
yeah,
just feel like you're dying. When it comes
yeah,
on so
yeah,
strong.
yeah,
And I didn't know that was my nervous system. So I'm in a complete state of dysregulation. And I became full blown agoraphobic. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't talk to anybody. I stayed in my basement. Showering was a tough thing, and I was so weak and sick. And it wasn't just anxiety; like it was, heart palpitations
yeah,
constantly, air hunger, just all these different things. So I went to go see this Lyme doctor, and I was in a wheelchair. Like from at this point, from I had POTS, which we all
yeah,
know. I'd stand up, my blood pressure would drop, my heart rate would go up. I was always dizzy and lightheaded. And mind you, I
yeah,
stopped moving. I was starting to develop atrophy, and I had all these crazy symptoms going on. And I thought I was losing my mind. And everybody around me thought I was crazy until I got the Lyme diagnosis. So they pushed me into a Lyme doctor, a renowned Lyme doctor in Reston, Virginia. And we started IV antibiotics, hyperbaric
yeah,
oxygen, all this thing. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have the answer.
yeah, yeah. You thought you were gonna be better, right?
we're,
Yeah,
we're, gonna, we're gonna get it treated. I remember sitting there crying. I'd like tears of joy. But then that's really what started the hell.
yeah,
They put me on, and it wasn't just there. I went from there to another big Lyme doctor. The biggest of the big.
yeah,
Um, I won't name drop, even though I do, because I have so much anger towards these doctors. I was put on Lamictal, Lyrica, Paxil, Effexor XR, all these different benzodiazepines, and I was told, "Don't worry about coming off of them now. Let's get you better first." And all these different antibiotics, all these different injections, all these different neurotropic drugs. And dude, I got so sick that eventually I couldn't work anymore. I lost my house, my cars, everything. We had to file for bankruptcy. My cars were repossessed, and these aren't just normal cars. Like Joe and I are car dudes.
yeah,
I spent a lot of time building these cars, like suspension, motor, all this, and to watch those towed away and see a foreclosure sign in my driveway, and know that there was
yeah,
nothing that I could do as a man to provide for my family, felt like a failure. Like
yeah.
just didn't want to be here anymore, and continued to kind of spiral down a dark hole of just really being sick and no one really understanding Lyme disease.
Mhm.
And I'd had a good friend that had really been a pinnacle in my life. And then she ended up passing away. She had a PIC line, and I don't know if
Yeah,
she got shot or she died or what happened. But around that time, I came around a couple other people, and we decided to start a nonprofit for Lyme patient rights, where we
yeah,
lobbied on Capitol Hill, held these large protests, and I felt like I was doing something, and we were fighting for Lyme rights. And what I
mhm.
realized is this is just a toxic community of people.
Yeah,
They're like crabs in a barrel, and nobody's getting better. And we did make some progress, at least on Capitol Hill and stuff like that. And it was an
What
incredible experience.
what year around was this? Like, how many years into being sick? Is that I
This is
know.
probably between 2010 and 2013.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
And I'm having to push these things in a wheelchair, like crashing in there. And around the stress of all this, I started to develop neuropathy, and
Yeah,
I'd never had it before. And I'm now on my third Lyme literate doctor, an integrative doctor, where we're exploring mold, heavy metals. I got my
yeah.
amalgams removed.
Went all yeah,
I'm on these heavy detox protocols. I'm doing IV ozone, activated charcoal, hyperbaric oxygen, you name it, bee venom therapy.
mhm,
I'm doing all these things, and I'm just getting worse and worse and worse.
yeah,
Eventually, I started getting this numbness that was in my legs, and it would start in my feet and then would travel up to my knees. And the doctor's like, "It's fine, it'll go away. It's common with Lyme disease." Well, I remember waking up one morning, and this is embarrassing to say as a grown man, but like I peed the bed.
yeah,
And I didn't know what was going on. And I'm sitting here trying to feel and everything's numb. Like I couldn't
mm,
feel anything. We went to the doctors, and I had gotten a lumbar puncture, spinal tap. I already had Lyme disease, but this is what they wanted to do at the ER,
mhm,
and I couldn't feel anything. And I had to be in a wheelchair, and there was no rhyme reason. It was just blamed on Lyme disease.
yeah,
Um, and there I was. I'd lost my ability to be able to go to the bathroom by myself. I
mhm,
had to have someone there with me all the time. And I really started losing hope. At this point, we're probably $125,000 into Lyme treatment. I'm not feeling any better. I just feel completely just hopeless.
yeah,
And it's we're I don't even know what year we're in. It's all a blur, guys. It's almost been 20 years.
Yeah,
I
long
got to
time
a point
ago.
where I felt like a burden to my family. It destroyed my marriage. That I didn't want to be here anymore. And as a man,
Mm,
this is the toughest part. You're sick. You're not feeling like you can't get any better. You can't walk. What good are you as a human?
mm,
And I fought. Like I got up every single day and I fought the symptoms. I pulled my socks up. I did what we can. But bro, like it's different. Like when you feel like you have the flu 24/7 every single
yeah,
day, it's hard to keep picking yourself up. And I got to a point where I just didn't want to be here anymore. And I'd lost my mom. I'd lost half my family, and I just didn't have the support. So I tried to take my
yeah,
life. Thank God that
mm,
it wasn't successful. Got my stomach pumped, and I hate admitting that part, but it's part of my story because I know a lot of you guys that are listening have
yeah,
been there. That
yeah,
you don't see any hope in sight.
yeah,
So I really started to kind of dive deep into my faith and lean on that. And I wasn't feeling any better, but I was trying to kind of get up and live or make the best of the hand that I was dealt.
mm,
A crazy story. If you look my son up, Noah Cutler,
yeah,
this crazy thing happened. He found all my stuff in a garage one day, all my basketball trophies and jerseys and newspaper clippings and stuff like that. And I asked him. He was homeschooled because my insurance wouldn't cover a home health care nurse.
yeah,
So at 8 years old, my son's helping take care of me. He's bringing me my medication. He's pushing me around in a wheelchair. I'm homeschooling him. He became my best friend in this situation. And I asked him one day, I was like, what is it that I could do for you? Like, what could I ever do to give back for you being there for me? He's like, Dad, I
yeah,
just want to play basketball. Well, naturally, I can't hoop. I'm in a wheelchair, and I got him a goal. We put it on our front yard, and every single day, rain, sleet, show, snow. I told him, I was like, do not ever take a healthy day for granted. And he took that to heart at 8 years old. And he would go out and he'd practice every single day.
yeah,
Um, Around this time, he was getting better. We took a trip to Canada to see Niagara Falls. I just needed to get out. I needed to see something. I'm still agoraphobic, but I was like, I got to get out of here. Like, I have
yeah,
to think. I started drinking kind of heavily at the time, just to kind of numb it.
yeah.
And I went and I got a tattoo on my leg. And I woke up the next morning in Canada and I had feeling back. I
That's
could
so
feel them on
wild.
my feet. I could put them on the ground. And we came back to the States and I asked my doctors, I was like, what's going on? Like, we can't describe it as anything other than miraculous. We don't know the cause and we don't know what fixed it. I said, is
So
it possible
wild.
that it comes back? And since then, I've had tingling and numbness in the bottom of my feet, but it came back. So I would start going outside my front yard and, I'd sit with Noah as long as there wasn't anybody outside.
Yeah,
And he got really good. And he put a clip out on the internet of him playing basketball and it went dumb viral. It's on Sports Center. Get a call from ESPN.
yeah,
He wanted to put it on there, and you guys can all search this up. Then I get a call from the GM of Golden State Warriors office saying, "Hey, we want to fly you guys out to Oracle Arena. We want your son to do the halftime show." And I dropped the phone because Noah had gotten so.
it's so crazy.
And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm so sick. There's no way that I'm getting on a plane. There's no way that I'm going
Yeah,
to an arena
yeah,
full of people. Like, as sick as I am, like, I didn't think I'd make the flight. But I'm like, dude, my son's done so much for me. Like, I got to give him this opportunity. I got
mhm,
to be able to, show him or he deserves this. So sure enough, I don't even remember how, but we get on the flight and we get out there and he kills it. And the video goes viral. It gets like 37 million views. And for like 2 weeks, our phones are blowing up. Packages are coming to the
yeah,
house. And then people wanted to know our story. We went on a couple talk shows and kind of shared how he was there for me and all this thing happened. So I was like, all right, well, maybe I'm turning a corner. Maybe I'm getting better. Maybe life's going to start looking up for me. And it didn't. Like,
yeah, yeah,
I finally found an incredible doctor in Virginia that he would give me vitamin C and glutathione IVs and treat holistically and stuff like that. And I started making some progress, but he started talking to me about my nervous system. And
yeah,
this is just another rabbit hole to go down. And for you guys that have a mold thing, we ended up moving from there to Florida. I needed to be in warmer weather. I couldn't do winters. Had a terrible mold exposure, was living in a tent. This is a whole other story for you guys that suffer from mold, but
yeah,
was living in a tent. And, for you guys that say, oh, well, you don't know about mold. Oh, I do. Like,
yeah,
I lived in a tent, and then I was reacting to the tent because of multiple chemical sensitivity, with both Joe and I thought we struggled with, and had all these things. And, we're down in Florida, and I'm just like, man, I watched this movie, and to this point, I've probably been sick about 16 years.
yeah,
I watched The Shawshank Redemption, and there was a quote in the movie that said, "Get busy living or get busy dying." And I really took that to heart. I was really sick and I lived a very, very
Yeah.
limited life. And when it said get busy living or get busy dying, I realized that every day, even as sick as I was, if I was laying on the couch, that I was dying.
Mm-hmm.
If I was going to die, if this was my last year of life, I wanted to be something that I remembered. To this point, now I have 4 kids. I want them to see their father fought a valiant fight for whatever it was. I was
Mm.
still thinking that I was dying, and symptomatically, I was there. The doctors didn't know what to do with me at this point.
Yep.
So, I really started to think on that and to believe on that. And then another quote, and we say this often in our class: "No one's coming to save you."
Yeah.
uh, was big. So during the COVID years, I started kind of taking small walks outside. And that was huge for me. And then eventually, this is a very condensed version of my story. There's a whole mold
Yeah.
part
Yeah.
where I was sick, and just for the sake of time. But Joe actually had developed long COVID and had gotten sick and relapsed. I'd known him in the community for a while,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he came to stay with me, and we kind of made a pact like, hey, look, dude, let's try this nervous system work
Yeah.
together. Let's try to get better. Let's figure this out, because he'd gotten better
Yeah.
once, and sure
I
enough.
want to actually, I want to back up just a little bit before we get to that, because you had said your doctor was the first person that kind of mentioned the nervous system stuff, and then you were kind of resistant to it. Um, like before I moved down there, I know you had kind of you kind of had started dabbling in some of the
Yeah,
practices, right? Was that, yeah, like
yeah,
how was that? Yeah.
yeah. So actually, and I want to reverse, because I want to make sure that
Yeah.
I commit to
Yeah.
everybody, guys. When I tell you I was sick, I was really sick.
Yeah.
I had a cardiologist and I had electrophysiologist. So
Yeah.
you have a cardiologist, which is you have a heart, and then you have another specialized area of cardiology. That's where I was at, because my heart was going so wonky, blood pressure,
Yeah.
palpitations, and stuff like that. And prior to moving, dude, I was 3 weeks out from getting a
Yeah.
pacemaker put in,
Yeah.
because they could not stop the palpitations. They were terrible. And here's the crazy part: diet change stopped them. And now I
Yeah.
think, like, calming my nervous
Yeah.
system, but it was a lot of what I was eating. And I thought that I was eating healthy at the time, and I was, by American standards, but not really.
Yeah.
And we'll dive into diet on a different thing. But yeah, I mean, with that, what was your question, dude? Sorry.
Oh yeah. So like you had kind of started dabbling in some of the nervous
Yeah,
system stuff prior to moving down. Like what, I know you said your doctor was someone,
yeah.
but yeah, you,
Or yeah, so the first, so he said, you got to regulate your nervous system. And I had a doctor tell me a long time ago. He's like, you're constantly dumping adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream. He's like, you're like a driver that has his foot to the floorboard the entire
yeah,
time, and
yeah,
there's no brakes. And that's how he
yeah,
described like what was going on in my body. And that, Joe and I say, we feel like we licked our fingers and stuck them in an electrical socket.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
how it felt constantly, like for that entire duration of
yeah.
16, 17 years, whatever it was.
Hmm.
So, as a last ditch effort, I started talking to people that gotten better. I
Yeah,
got out of all the chronic illness communities, Lyme communities, MS communities, and which, going back, I had white matter spots. I had a diagnosis of MS. I mean, there's just so much.
yeah,
And I started talking to people that got better. Like, I started hunting them out, and I tried to draw the commonalities. Well, nervous system regulation, neuroplasticity, movement. You had to start moving your body, and diet, and some sort of spirituality, like a faith component.
yeah,
So I was like, okay. And I probably talked to a couple hundred people, and they all had the same thing. But the one commonality was consistency, to
yeah,
continue to show up, because you're not going to see stuff in the very beginning. So I was like, okay. And some people said DNRS, some people said Primal Trust, some people said Gupta. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna order DNRS. And I remember getting like this huge packet of DVDs,
yeah,
and I'm like, oh, this is so cumbersome. I'm hopping on spots. I'm saying stop, stop, stop. I'm doing all these crazy things, and I'm like, yo, what is going on? And then I ordered another program, and I'm not going to take jabs. They didn't work for me.
yeah,
And I was like, man, this is so complex. This doesn't seem sustainable.
yeah,
And like, I'm sitting here as a sick dude on the couch trying to work through these DVDs and these notebooks and these programs online. And I was like, man, I feel alone in this. Like, I can't, like, there's no motivation to get started. And I think that we have to be the self motivators, but when
yeah.
you're in that spot, it's really difficult.
And you're really sick. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I was on the couch, dude. I was a professional couch surfer, man.
yeah,
Scrolling on my phone, Netflix and Xbox, and just, I
yeah,
mean, some days I didn't even feel well enough to do that.
Yeah.
And I did what I could to take care of my kids. And I just felt so sick all the
Yeah.
time. And it didn't matter. Every morning you wake up and you think you get used to it. You don't. Like it
Yeah.
feels just as new every single morning. And that's where Joe kind of came in, and Joe wrote a book. He'd gotten better from Lyme disease. And like, I was like, screw that dude, man, he's kind of leaving us behind, but I was happy for him. And then he relapsed and got long COVID, as if you guys listen to the long story, and he was really sick.
Yeah.
So he wasn't at a point where he was driving a ton. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
really driving. We're both pretty close to being bed sick and non-functional at that point.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, he was
Yeah.
not taking walks to the park, but every day just didn't want to be here, and I didn't want
Yeah.
to. So I was like, all
Yeah.
right, dude, here's all these people that are saying they've gotten better doing this. You said you've gotten better this way. Let's figure this out. Let's hold each other accountable. Let's lift each other up. And sure enough, every single day we got up and we did the work.
Yeah.
And, I started to believe that my life could look drastically different than what it was. And it was hard. We'd get up every morning, my wife would, go to work, and then Joe and I would try to take a walk around the block. And some days I could make it
Yeah.
around, some days I couldn't. But eventually got to the point where we were walking a mile at night and a mile in the morning. And that was like the turnaround point. And then we'd meditate and visualize what it would like to create a healthy life outside of illness. And sure
Yeah.
enough, we did. We went from starting food trucks to restaurants to the healing dudes to
Yeah.
all these different things. And outside of that, one of my biggest things was basketball. I wanted to coach basketball. And I'm like, dude, how could I ever do this being so sick? It
Yeah.
just seemed just not possible at all. And, as we're going along, Joe and I are starting to have glimmers. Like, I'm getting up every single day. I'm practicing gratitude. I'm starting to really dive deep into my faith in God, and leaning on that and believing that I have a purpose outside of my illness. That was super
Hmm.
important for me, and,
Yeah.
and finding my thing. And slowly but surely, we start noticing differences, like glimmers of
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
So, I volunteered to start coaching again, and it was tough, man. I remember every single
Yeah.
day just showing up. It was the active consistency of surrendering to my symptoms and the idea of calming my nervous system down. And I didn't know what that meant, because here 90%, and I'm not sure the actual percentage, but 90% of my body is constantly on high alert. So
Yeah.
digestion, my liver, my kidneys, my heart, all this. How would it function optimally
Yeah.
if 90% is constantly going to these alarms that are going
Hmm.
on? So
Yeah.
it's like, all right, let's calm these alarms down. Let's begin to live life. So I start trying to drive again, and it's still difficult. And there was times where Joe would have to
Yeah.
follow me, and there was times I'd have to drive for him. And it was, man, we got it out the mud, dude. Like, we would
Yeah.
really be struggling, but we showed up every single day, and we're like, man, what would happen if we tried to go through this publicly? Like, I was like,
Yep.
what do we got to lose? I don't care what people think of me. Dudes can say what they want. Like, most guys, if they went through what we went through, dude, would curl up with a blanket and want
Yeah.
mommy.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. Like, for all of us, it is, when you feel like you're dying every single day for almost 20 years, man, it's one of
Hmm.
the most difficult things to go through. It's like Rocky getting his face pounded in every single time and
Yeah.
getting up and knowing that punch is coming. And you just got to eat it. You're not going to be able to, bob and weave.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we started to see shifts. And, I started coaching again and slowly moved out that. And I want to be transparent. I'm not 100%.
Yeah.
But I started living my life again, and I'm now in a position where I'm coaching at the highest level of travel basketball. Like, I coach varsity basketball. I do these things, and I'm not going to tell you that it's easy every single day, because it's not. But I
Yeah.
am no longer the man that lives on the couch every single day.
Yeah.
Now, I still have days that I have to reframe, that I have to calm those alarm systems down, and that I still have a lot of work to do. But I was sick for almost 20 years. But in the 2 years that I've been doing this work, I began to see major shifts in my life. I began to
Yeah.
have joy again. I've been able to get on a plane. I've been able to do things alone. Like, and it's a brick by brick approach. It's not one night you're here and one night you're better. No, it is
Yeah. Yeah.
the consistency of showing up when it's difficult. I've had times where I feel like I want to be knocked back down on the couch, and it's about riding the waves. And what I want you guys to know is, I'm no longer the person that doesn't want to live anymore. Like, I'm grateful for my
Yeah.
faith. I feel like I have a purpose now in life, and I'm incredibly gracious for that. And now I practice gratitude every single morning. I get up and I walk. I do all these things. And are some mornings, is it difficult? Absolutely. But are
Yeah.
some mornings, does it feel good? Yeah. And that's what I fought for, is the idea that I can heal. And I believe that healing's a journey. And I'll end on this. You got a lot of these programs and you got a lot of these practitioners. I'm taking jabs because our dude Helmet did it, but I am so sick and tired of these people pretending that they're 100% better when the goal obviously is to continue to heal.
Yeah.
And that's what if you were to take my life when I was bed sick and my day looked like going from the couch to the bed to the bed to the couch, and if I showered twice that week, it was a good week for me,
Yeah.
to showering every day, getting out and going for my walks, facing fears and healing, actively healing,
Yeah.
man, there wouldn't be, I would pay millions for that. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I would pay millions for the idea. And there's still days that I struggle and I'm transparent, but you got these people out here that are giving you this idea that it happens overnight or they're getting 100% better in 3 months. And guys, it's just not,
Not
it
true.
is, healing is hard work. I listened to this podcast and at the beginning of it, it said something like, God, I wish I remember what it said, but healing is not pretty. Healing is not rainbows. It's not filmed in the Swiss Alps. It's
Yeah.
not what it is. It's in the mud. It's dark. It's difficult. And if I didn't have the community that Joe and I created, if I didn't have him to have my back and
Yeah.
to have these, I don't think that I would have made it out. And that's why we do what we do. And we started doing this thing for free because we knew that this was working and we saw people
Mhm.
getting better. And now we have a 30-year psychologist that's in our class that got better doing this work.
Right.
Amazing to see this. And he's seeing the progress too. And when you start getting parts of your life back, that is the fuel that feeds you to keep going, even when we have difficult days. And I absolutely have difficult days. And I'm very transparent about that. But my issue is you've got a lot of people out here that are making feel good videos that make you seem like it's so easy. So when you start doing the work and you're immediately not getting better, you give up. Well, guess
Yeah.
what, guys? In the beginning of it, it's going to suck. It's going to suck on day one. It's going to suck on day two. It's going to suck on day 10. It might
Yeah.
suck on day 30. It might suck 3 months in. But if you embrace the suck, you're going to
Yeah.
see those glimmers. And if you dive in and you're with people that are supportive and that you see them getting better, guys, man, it's worth it. It's worth the suck.
So true.
Like healing is suck. But once you get past that point and you really start to have these moments, I had this moment and I'll close on this, man. One of the biggest trips I told myself, if I'm going to die, I'm going to do it living.
Yeah.
And I took
Yeah.
this trip out to Vegas and to Utah. I wanted to see Zion National Park. It was a bucket list thing. I'd been in my bed the whole time, and I wanted to see Vegas. And I was like, I'm going to do it. And I remember sitting in the airport, praying and
Yeah.
meditating, like, how am I ever going to get on this plane? I'm going to die. Like I did it
Yeah.
with class, and I did it. And I remember sitting in the middle of the desert in Utah, like having a full blown panic attack, being fully symptomatic. And it was there. It was my moment of surrender to the things that I can't control, that I can't control these symptoms, that the only way to shut down these alarm systems and to tell my nervous system that I'm safe is to surrender. And for
Yeah.
me, I gave it all to God. I dropped it all right there. And I'm like, it is what it is till it isn't. And I
Yeah.
repeat that to myself. Joe says this too shall pass, but it
Yeah.
is what it is till it isn't. I had this stone in my hand and I'm feeling like the smoothness of it. And I'm looking around at the beauty of the world and like how it's created. And our bodies are intelligent. Like they
Mhm.
want to heal when we get
Mhm.
out of the way. So I was like, all right, let me fully surrender. And that was my moment. Like I'd had glimmers,
Yeah.
but I had to climb back up the side of a cliff to get to the car. And
Yeah. I
that was
remember that.
and I was like, my body isn't capable of doing that. And this is the message I kept telling myself is I'm not capable. So I took this smooth stone in my hand and I said, I got this. I'm surrendering. And step by step. That's the journey. That's the healing journey.
Yeah.
Step by step. It's not running up the hill and you might slide back down, but you get back up and you climb and you climb. And yeah, I got to the top of the cliff and I got in the car and I'm like, I can't believe I did that. And I was like, you know what? From this time I surrender on. I will no longer be a slave to fear of my symptoms, to the what ifs, to all these different things. And I began
Mhm.
to live my life. And I did it symptomatic. I did it scared. I did it
Yeah.
when I didn't feel well. I did it when I felt like I had this malaise, the fatigue, all of it. And you know what? As my body started to calm down, it wasn't a medication. It wasn't the bee venom therapy. It
Mhm.
wasn't herbs. It wasn't a rabbit hole. It was my body. It knew how to
Yeah.
heal when I got out of the way. Guys, so I want to let you know if you're suffering, and this is a very, very short and
Yeah.
abrupt.
Yeah. We could go into.
I mean, there's ambulance rides, there's blacking out, there's cardiac ICU trips. I mean, there's a whole web of just dark, dark, dark times where I didn't have anybody. But guys, it gets better. But it
Yeah.
doesn't get better by chance. It gets better when you invest time, when you do the work. And this is why we do this with community is you have people to lift you up. You have people to encourage you. You have people to have your back. And it's not just a community. It's you come in and these people become your friends. These people become
Yeah.
lifelong friends that you heal alongside. So if you're out there struggling, I want to let you know, first of all, you're not alone. But second apart, You can get better. And to what degree? None of us know that. DNRS doesn't know that. Primal Trust doesn't know that. Gupta doesn't know that. Whatever other program, we don't know that. But what I can tell you is that you can absolutely get better. That things can change, and you know these programs, they all work. But what we try to do is we keep it small. It's community based, and we care about each individual that comes into the class. You're not just a
Yeah.
number. So I want to let you guys know I'm not an anomaly. I thought that I was the worst case scenario. Joe did too, that no one was like
Yeah.
us, that no one was as bad. And what I realized is pretty much everybody that comes in the class has that mindset. So guys, if you're looking to get better, if you're struggling, if you feel like you're at the end of the rope, just know that there is hope. We do have a class now. The information will actually be down in the bio for this video. We'd love to have you come and be a part of the community and heal with us, guys. It's not a fast race; it's a marathon, but you can absolutely get better. You don't have to give up hope. So,
Yeah.
thanks for listening, guys. Joe, I appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah,
God,
man. Thanks for sharing.
as we share our stories, man, and there's just so much more that needs to come out, but we want to try and keep
We'll
it
do
condensed.
more. Yeah. We'll do more of these more in depth details. I think even for just each part of our journey, because it can go, we could spend hours on each part.
Yeah,
But I think it's, it's important to consistently share our journey so that people don't know, like people don't, they don't know us. They feel like, oh, these guys were just mildly sick. Like, no, dude, we were in it. Like, there were some really, really dark days, years that where, just all hope was lost. And then, things shifted and hope was regained and then belief and then, living again and understanding that this is a journey and just bringing the symptoms and the illness with you as you heal, man. It's very inspirational, dude. So thank you for
absolutely.
sharing, man. Thank you for
Appreciate
sharing.
it,
Well,
bro.
yeah,
I really appreciate it. And
yeah,
I want to leave you guys with this.
yeah,
No one's coming to save you. And I say this so much. I
yeah,
say it so much, but it's true. The
yeah,
closest thing that you can do is find a community of people that believe in you, that believe in your body's ability to heal, and that push you gently towards healing, guys.
yeah,
You don't have to do it alone. Like, I'm grateful if I didn't have my homie there to be
yeah,
there for this journey. I don't think either of us would be where we're at.
yeah, yeah,
And I want to preface this out there because we got some haters. I'm not saying I'm 100% better. I'm not.
yeah,
But I choose life. I choose healing, and I believe that things can get better. And I hope that you guys do too, Joe. I appreciate it,
yeah.
man.
Thanks, man.